It took one special edition from Hour of Devastation, but we're definitely ready to blow your kitten mittens off with a green-white tribal cats deck for standard, and it isn't expensive, and it's actually pretty friggin' decent. This is everything I've always wanted. I'm impossibly excited. Now, we'll be using TCG player pricing throughout to show you just how cheap it is, and if you want to see the list or buy any piece of it for basement prices, you can click the first link in the description. And if you enjoy the video, be sure to give it a like. Let's do this thing. I'm so pumped. We'll begin with the staples of the strategy, the cards that together make cats a reality, Regal Caracal and the newly printed Pride Sovereign. Regal Caracal is the first piece of the puzzle. A 5-mana cat from Mom and Cat that is a 3/3 in its own right, but creates 2 1/1 cats with lifelink on entry to the battlefield, and automatically makes them 2/2s because this is a Lord of all Lords. And if you have cats that don't already have lifelink, they do now. The Caracal is pretty expensive at 5 mana, but look at what you get. 5 mana for a 3/3 and 2 2/2s with a lifelink? Yeah, this thing is real. Speaking of real, Pride Sovereign in all of its majestic glory. The Sovereign is a cat itself, great start. It gets +1/+1 for each other cat you control, absurd. And you can exert it to create 2 1/1 cat tokens with a lifelink. This is like a more consistent Regal Caracal trigger. Now, you don't get to untap, so you can only create 2 1/1 lifelinkers every other turn. But when you do, the Sovereign gets a huge buff and you get more cats. Those two creatures together, outrageous on the battlefield at the same time. Let's get into the rest of the deck. This is going to be so good. At the bottom of our curve, we're running a playset of Adorned Pouncer. Instant playset. This card's ridiculous. Sure, it's only a 1/1 with double strike on first cast, but you don't care at all. The Caracal buffs it and gives it lifelink, but that also isn't the best part. The best part? It comes back. It's a late game house. A 4/4 cat with double strike and probably lifelink. Adorned Pouncer was a menace whenever it eternalized in testing. Honestly and truly insane. One of the MVPs of the deck for sure. Next up is Tusks Cub. The cat deck gets off the ground really quickly, and we do that by playing a lot of decent 2-drops. Tusks Cub is one of them, and the little guy doesn't need a lot of energy to get going. Merely having the cat creature type is enough to make this a problem, especially when the Caracal is already online. Makes it valuable in the late game. Then of course that energy ability will throw the Cub's power over the top. Simply another solid cat creature to increase our board presence early. We are so not done with 2-drops. Felidar Cub makes its way into this deck as a 3-of. Now, there are more cats than you think in Standard right now, and we tested with all of them, but you'd be surprised how many times Felidar Cub just dumpstered players with Cast Out, or Stasis Snare, or Liliana's Mastery, or surprisingly some of the Oaths. Yeah, I forgot about those two for a while. Anyways, enchantment removal is not what most players are expecting, especially in the main deck, and that ability gives this cat that little bit of extra value we needed it to have to make the cut. It wouldn't be a standard tribal deck without Metallic Mimic, am I right? This is the most expensive card in the entire deck, but it is well worth the cost. If you can get the Mimic, you really should. It's going to be worth money forever. Anyways, Metallic Mimic chooses cat as the creature type when it enters the battlefield. It is now a cat, and all your cats are going to enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. Not on cast, on entry, which means all of those cat tokens you're making, yeah, those are now 2/2s naturally. The Pain Train is a-comin' and it's chasing a ball of yarn so large no one can stop it. Again, we're especially aggressive early game, and Watchers of the Dead makes for the perfect last 2-drop in the deck. We're running a limited number of them, but they help with Delirium strategy since those are making a real annoying return. The Watchers also annoy zombie decks, some emerge strategies, and control variants, especially ones that enjoy using Torrential Gearhulk. Watchers of the Dead obviously won't be good in every deck, but in ours, yeah, it's perfect. Hoses some strategies real well. We already have Pride Sovereign at the 3-drop slot, but we're also running a full playset of Prowling Serpopard because this dumb cat snake is one of the unsung heroes of this strategy. 3 mana for a 4/3 with no downside is already great, especially when it has cat for a creature type. And it can't be countered, which is amazing in a meta full of control decks right now. And creature spells you control can't be countered. None of them. Half of your deck are creatures. Half! The Serpopard is giving you free reign. Play all the cats. I'm just saying. In a standard where Supreme Will, Essence, Scatter, Disallow, and Censor are all seeing play, this is real good. It's real good. With our Pride Sovereign and Regal Caracal, that's 29 creatures in total. Let's move to non-creatures. Our support spells. We were back and forth on so many, but here's where we landed. A full playset of Collective Effort. This Escalate sorcery has been so good. Way better than I thought it was going to be. Takes down Glorybringer, the big stuff in Emerge, Gearhawks. That's Smite the Monstrous right there, and it's good. Next, you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature target player controls. Each. On your lifelink cats. Do you see where we are right now? Best part, escalating this is basically a joke. You've created so many cats by now that tapping down one to get a permanent Anthem effect and a removal spell is easy as pie. This card is a Swiss Army knife of awesome. You kill huge things, buff your entire team, and sometimes even kill enchantments. Collective Effort is the best 42 cents you're gonna spend, let me tell ya. In case that wasn't enough removal, we're running 3 Stasis Snare. Never had a problem with the double white and the cost, and this simply became a solid removal spell. Collective Effort wasn't enough, especially since it doesn't hit the smaller creatures we have to get rid of. Stasis Snare is for them. The Scrap Heap Scroungers, your Tireless Trackers, the Bristling Hydras once their shields are down, or anything huge really. Stasis Snare is pretty versatile. It exiles indestructible creatures so gods can just get out of here. Again, another versatile removal spell that will help make sure our cats can get through for massive feline damage. There are definitely flavor points to be won here, but that isn't why a Johnny Unyielding is in this deck. He's in here because he's simply amazing. Not only is he super cheap, like criminally cheap, financially speaking, he does exactly what we want. He's a late game bomb. When we're out of cats to play, he refuels our hand with his +2, he brings additional removal with his -2, and we honestly don't care about that -9 all that much. Although the one time I did pull it off, we ended that game with over 200 life, so that was fun. Anyways, the Johnny is expensive, but he's the late game push this deck needs sometimes. That +2 is just way too good for words. The deck doesn't need a lot of mana to get going early game, all it really needs is 2 or 3, so 22 lands is enough. We're running a playset of Tranquil Expanse alongside 11 plains and 7 forests. Pretty simple, but honestly we don't really need anything complicated. In this budget version, this land base will work just fine. It was remarkably consistent. Sometimes simplicity is, fine. Let's talk strategy then upgrades. Green-white budget tribal cats is actually a really strong deck for what it is. The budget options that we've included pull their weight just fine, and the deck can stand on its own 4 legs a decent amount, especially once you drop a lifelink kitty or 2. Your strategy is to stay alive until you can get a few cats down and one of your lords, or at least enough cats to present an offensive. With this in mind, Collective Effort and Stasis Snare are there to help keep you alive. Don't be afraid to use them early if you have to. You can't build up your cat army if you're dead, you know what I mean? Also, I know this may seem silly, but it's the silly things that we forget. Metallic Mimic always gets played before any other cat. Any other cat. Mimic always comes down, always. You don't want to lose that +1/+1 counter. A lot of your 2-drop cats are 2/2s. The difference between a 2/2 cat and a 3/3 cat might as well be night and day. If the Mimic is not available, play out your long Tusks Cub first. You want to pressure your opponent and force them to find a way to avoid the Cub's trigger. Stay on the cat fensive. Upgrades for this deck do exist and they're pretty great. We'll begin with the lands as that's the easiest part. We have access to Canopy Vista, Fortified Village, and Scattered Groves in Standard right now. If you have them lying around, put them in. Scattered Groves has the highest priority because cycling lands are just way better for this deck than the other two. Moving on to removal, Declaration in Stone and Cast Out would both be in the main deck in limited number to replace Stasis Snare. Not that I don't love the Snare, I do. And most of the time it's going to do everything you need, but Declaration and Cast Out, both super solid. Against decks with board wipes, Heroic Intervention is a must sideboard card. This thing will save your life, and it's like $1 maybe. Obviously, also Gideon, Ally of Zendikar is a great add to the deck, but I'm so sick of seeing his stupid face, we're just going to leave him down there in the corner. You get the picture. Deck is great, upgrades are great, everything's great. So what do you think about our take on green-white tribal cats in Standard? I'm not going to lie to you, this deck has the ability to end games with you having over 50 life or 100. If you can survive long enough to get your cat lords online, insanity. The Sovereign gets huge and gets lifelink from the Caracal, both create even more cats. It's the most beautiful thing you'll ever see, I guarantee it. And remember, if you like the list and want to see it in its entirety or buy any of the pieces for it, you can click the first link in the description. The deck is real cheap for its power, hilariously fun, you can't go wrong, I know you'll enjoy it. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.